Welcome once again to another episode of Recording in Progress. My name's Larry, and with me again, as always, is Jim. Jim?
Wait, huh?
Jim, if you don't answer, I'm going to have to fire you.
Oh. Well, I guess I'm going to go then. And I don't need any of this. I don't need any of this stuff. And I don't need you. And I don't need anything except this. And that's it. And that's the only thing I need is this. I don't need this or this. Just this ashtray and the paddle game. The ashtray and the paddle game. And that's all I need. All right, never mind. I'll stick around. How you doing, Larry?
I'm doing pretty good. That was a reference to one of the excellent movies we've been reviewing today, and we have a very packed show, in part because there was the 4th of July holiday, and Jim had, things with people that he had to do, so we couldn't do a show, and a lot of stuff's happened in these last 2 weeks. And we had a movie we were going to review, a short film that we had the opportunity to watch with a friend. But unfortunately, that had to get cut.
Yeah. You wouldn't have known what it was anyway.
Exactly. It would be an esoteric reference that only a few of our friends would appreciate.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off with celebrity deaths, because there are a lot of times where there's celebrity deaths where it's like, oh yeah, I know who that guy is, but it's not really that big of a deal. But no. These are three titans in their respective fields of entertainment. So Enrico, how do you pronounce that last name?
Ennio Morricone.
Sorry, I misread the words on the link there.
Just think of Brian Eno, but with an extra syllable. Ennio.
So if you watched a little movie series called The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, Fistful of Dollars, A Few Dollars More, you have definitely heard his legendary music. Prolific Italian composer for the movies, dies at the age of 91. He also did the Mission Cinema Paradiso, The Hateful Eight, and Days of Heaven. The Hateful Eight with Quentin Tarantino was his last work, and he was nominated for Best Original Score on that one.
I think he actually won, didn't he?
I
know he
yes, he did. But also that gets into the whole, this is probably the last time he's going to be here to get an Oscar kind of scenarios.
Yeah. He also did the soundtrack to one of my favorite horror movies of all time, The Thing.
Yeah. Also, various Italian movies, too numerous to list. Probably a bunch of French movies that are too numerous to list.
Over 400, yeah.
Over 400 films. Absolute legend. He passed away.
Yeah, and over 100 just individual works that he's done, individual compositions that he's wrote, not for movies. So yeah, big loss.
Also, Charlie Daniels is now going to play the fiddle with the devil from heaven, because I'm not going to say he's went to hell, because that would be kind of rude. Charlie Daniels, best known for his hit "The Devil Went Down to Georgia," spanned gospel, southern rock, bluegrass, and country. He also passed away from a hemorrhagic stroke, which is not good.
No. I think I do enjoy the Primus version better than the original, but yeah, it's a classic.
Yeah.
It's
an absolute classic. Again, a man who's an absolute legend. And another absolute legend who we definitely had to watch a movie for passed away, Carl Reiner, who was famous in his own right, and then he had a son who became famous more or less in his own right.
Yeah, for eating bacon and telling how they're going to die from smoking.
Exactly. So Mr. Reiner first became famous in a little show you might have heard of called The Sid Caesar Show. Have you heard of that?
No, I'm not old.
He also did a television variety show called The Show of Shows.
No. I think all the variety shows of those eras just kind of melded together. I think the only one I could pick out was...
The Dick Van Dyke Show, though. The Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yeah. That's great.
That is great. He also did a little thing called The 2,000-Year-Old Man.
Is that The Honeymooners?
With Mel Brooks?
That's not. That's something else.
No. But, we should actually review The 2,000-Year-Old Man, because that is a great piece of comedy.
Yeah. But The Jerk. I think that's
The Jerk. Yeah, he did. He was also in the Ocean's 11 movies. The Russians Are Coming. He was also in Broadway. He directed 4 Steve Martin movies. Let me see here. This New York Times article has a lot because the man died at the age of 98.
Jeez.
Yeah, he had a long life and a long career. His first movie was in 1963.
Jeez.
And again, an absolute legend. There's not a person of his like, but I will say in his obituary, The Jerk is listed.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Reiner's first major box office success was as a director was Oh God, starring John Burns, and a very down to earth deity. You should watch that too. That's another great movie starring John Denver. 2 years later, he teamed with Steve Martin. Then, at the height of his fame as a comedian, for what proved to be a mutually rewarding collaboration, Mr. Reiner first directed Martin in The Jerk, a film inspired by Mr. Martin's manic stand-up act. The critical response was lukewarm, but the movie was a box office smash and is now often shows up on the list of best American comedies.
Yeah, I think it's better. I think it's basically the first Dumb and Dumber and better than Dumb and Dumber. And Dumb and Dumber is a fantastic film. But The Jerk is just amazing. We'll get into that.
So let's talk about Mars Volta, and I'll let you read this one because you're not only the music guy, but you're deeper into the Scientology wheelhouse than I am.
This is like two things that I enjoy, or yeah, two cultures that I enjoy, like kind of mashed together. So I'm a huge fan of the Mars Volta. The Mars Volta, for those of you who don't know, actually came out of the ashes of a band that a lot of people think is better, but I completely disagree. At the drive-in, I think the Mars Volta is probably their Omar Rodriguez Lopez and Cedric Blixer Zavala, if I remember their names correctly off the top of my head without looking. Cedric Blixer Zavala. Yeah, I'm reading it now. Okay, so I got his name right. Those two are basically the Mars Volta. They also have a backing band that used to follow them around until they broke up, and I believe in 2012. Fantastic stuff. If you haven't heard D-Louse and the Combatorium, do so at your earliest convenience. You'll thank me later. Kind of progressive metal band, kind of really music nerd kind of music, but still kind of accessible. It was really popular. Either way, I guess. And then Scientology, which I have been like a couple of years before Chanology, Scientology was fucking with me, and I thought, all right, I can't take it anymore. And I used to go down and protest against Scientology, and then the whole 4chan thing happened.
So a friend of mine out in LA said that like the base for Scientology out in LA, it's like the final boss stage of the first-person shooter video game. He described it as just very surreal. It feels like you're in a video game and you're about to go in there and start shooting up the place.
Oh no!
In Minecraft.
Oh no! Yeah. I do not want to get sued by Scientology, even though they've been quite not nearly as litigious as they have been because they haven't been very successful after the whole Chanology thing. Which was the one good side benefit. The downfall was 4chan turned into anonymous, basically kind of turned into a giant joke. If they weren't already. But anyways,
Anonymous was never good.
B was never good either.
Exactly.
But yeah, apparently the Mars Volta singer, Cedric Blixer Zavala, had claimed that his wife was raped by Danny Masterson of that 70s show fame. Are you familiar with that show? It's a little kind of, neat show. I don't think too many know. A little
neat show,
yeah. I don't think anybody had any kind of careers that came out of it. Oh, wait. Sandman or Venom. Never mind. Anyway, yeah. So apparently, this was a long time ago. By the way, that he made this allegation against Masterson, and after he made this allegation, apparently someone had been throwing meat into his backyard for his dogs to eat. with little pellets of rat poison. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice that they would do that for him? And his German shepherds had died as a result. I think it's just a coincidence. What do you think?
It's just a coincidence.
Yeah, it's a strange, bizarre coincidence. I can't imagine there's any connection whatsoever. But maybe there's a connection in Minecraft, but not in the real world.
Maybe exactly not in the real world.
Yeah. So what do you think about this?
I think
now that we know the charges against him, and now there's some credible accusations going against him just outside of Blixer Zavala's claims.
I think that these are very serious allegations, and Danny Masterson's probably in a very bad place, and maybe he needs to go back to that Scientology drug rehab center.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking maybe that's the argument he's going to need to make for his lawyer, that he's backslid a little on his sobriety.
Time to take some niacin and get in the sauna.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but by the way, that's their secret treatment for drug addiction is taking niacinamide and going into the sauna.
Yeah, it gets rid of the toxins.
Yeah. So, Jim,
nothing but salsa.
We're in a very troubled time where people are saying that cops are the source of problems and evil in our country.
Mm-hmm.
But in actuality, superheroes are the next part of the culture of violence that we need to address. And luckily, Time magazine is there.
Oh.
We're re-examining how we portray cops on screen, and now it's time to talk about superheroes. And they have all these Hispanic people worshiping Superman like he's Jesus. That wouldn't be used to deliberately and not subtly set up your point. In the past several weeks, as calls to defund the police have gone mainstream, pop culture critics and fans have been reconsidering how Hollywood heroizes cops. Legal procedurals and shoot-'em-up action movies have presented a skewed perception of the justice system in America, which the police are almost always positioned as the good guys. These good cop narratives are rarely balanced out with stories of systemic racism in the criminal justice system. The bad guys they pursue are often people of color, their characters underdeveloped beyond their criminality. In this period of reckoning, the long-running show Cops and the wildly acclaimed Live PD have been canceled. Actors, writers, and contributors who to police procedurals are criticizing their own work and donating money to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Parents are protesting benevolent portrayals of canine cops in the children's show Paw Patrol. And Ava DuVernay's film collective Array is launching the Law Enforcement Accountability Project to highlight stories of police brutality and counteract the narrative. So now they have decided to say that superheroes are cops with capes. So Jim, you're not from that same perspective. What is your opinion about, as a libertarian who's critical of the police, of saying that superheroes are cops with capes?
They're not. They're vigilantes. Often they work against the request of the police. I mean, even in something like Batman, where he's getting a lot of stuff from the commissioner, the police department itself are like, no, you get stop the Batmans, please. Don't do that.
So, is it possible that superhero stories are a fantasy?
No, it's real life.
Exactly. With a few notable exceptions, more on those later. Most superhero stories star straight white men. Well, that's not true.
Yeah, Cyborg.
Either function as extension of a broken U.S. justice system.
Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Usually they have some sort of tentative relationship with the government. That's actually more of a recent occurrence in comic books.
Black Panther.
That's been adapted. Yeah. Avengers work for the secretive agency S.H.I.E.L.D. That's false. That's not even what's in the movies. Batman takes orders from Police Commissioner Gordon. That's doubly false. Even the villainous members of Suicide Squad execute government orders in exchange for commuted prison sentences. That one is true. That one is 100% true there.
Yeah, so they're slaves.
Yeah.
Cool.
And even when superheroes function outside the justice system, they're sometimes idealized by police because they're able to skirt the law and get the job done. And before they went into this section, they posted the Punisher, who is expressly not a superhero.
He's an anti-hero. He's a bad guy.
He is a bad guy. He murders people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he murders people that society says, I'm not saying it's okay to murder people in Minecraft, but, if somebody's a child molester, you should totally murder them in
Yeah.
Minecraft.
Like
That's
Rorschach.
Yeah, exactly. And they discuss Black Panther and Blade and how they're opening up racial dialogues about superheroics. And they talk about how in Into the Spider-Verse, Miles Morales is dead as a cop, and oh no, how can he deal with that? And they talk about the terrible Watchmen series. And they come to a conclusion the way forward. If Hollywood is to do better in telling these stories, more creators of color need to be given the reins to tell them. It's worth noting
Huh?
that while Lindelof employed a diverse writer's room, it's likely took his name and cachet as the creator of Lost and the Leftovers, of which only one of those shows is good, to get such an ambitious story greenlit.
Isn't Black Panther one of the highest rated or highest grossing Marvel movies?
It is.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. While the directors of the Spider-Verse, Peter Ramsey, became the first black man to win an Oscar for animation, Sony initially approached the two white men who ended up producing the film, Lego movie director Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, with the opportunity to make an animated Spider-Man. And they contributed by, writing and producing the film, but they're not the kind of animators for what Sony wanted to do, and they did really innovative animation. So this is pretty much a dirtbag garbage article by Time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we could disagree on issues of police brutality and things like that. We can disagree with the general narrative, but we can not disagree that Time magazine was basically dirty here.
Yeah.
And the author of the article on Twitter went further, says it's amazing how many of the responses have gotten totally ignored the undeniable fact that the vast majority of on-screen superheroes enforcing this particular version of justice with violence have been white dudes. So
this is just retarded.
So that's the start of a sort of a theme we're going to be running into today. So the comic book industry related to this has had a little oopsie doopsie. So we're on Discord frequently. We do have a Discord you can join. The link, I think, is on our page. And there's all sorts of little isolated pockets of the internet right now where people can organize and do what they want to do. Well, it turns out there's a group of over 500 women in comic books who organized a Whisper network. So let me read from this article from Bleeding Cool. My story. I first heard about the Whisper Network back in mid-2016 from folks I knew at Image, DC, Marvel, and later Valiant. Depending on who I chatted with, sometimes this group was called the Women's Network, other times the Whisper Network, occasionally the Whisper Campaign, and eventually there were more conspiratorial names used mockingly, as a friend called them a gender-swapped 4chan, which became FemChan for some insiders. Regardless of its name, it was all the same group. The same 5 or 6 names kept popping up in conversations over and
Well, we lost Larry. Larry?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back. Come on back.
Okay, that was weird. Discord is a great service, and I am not making any disparaging comments about it.
And there's nothing wrong with furries. Don't delete my account.
The same 5 or 6 names kept popping up in conversations on the Whisper Network over and over again. As the time ticked on, I noticed a trend on social media. Half a decade of rumors, false allegations, cancellation attempts, and they were almost always traced back to the same 5 or 6 people.
Hold on. Let me just move the server real quick. All right. You back? Oh. I think it actually might be Larry's connection just altogether. Larry.
And it's all
Larry, rewind it back to 5 or 6 people.
Really? It dropped again?
Mm-hmm.
That's not good.
Well,
Give me a sec.
I did instigate that one because I moved the server hoping that it'll make you better. So
okay.
We'll try this.
The same 5 or 6 names kept popping up in conversation over and over again. As time ticked on, I noticed this trend on social media, half a decade of rumors, false allegations, and cancellation attempts, and they were almost always traced back to the same 5 or 6 people. So basically, people organize on a secret Facebook group to spread salacious rumors and gossip to get people fired. Is the core element of this story. And let me just go here. In December 16th, 2018, Whisper Network member Gail Simone, who joined the network 6 years ago, 4 years before the following tweet was posted, mocks doofuses who speculate that a Whisper campaign exists. And here's another tweet where Gail makes a list of fake things the Whisper campaign is discussing in an attempt to laugh away the notion. At this point in late 2018, I was still skeptical of the Whisper Network's existence. I've heard many stories of individuals spreading rumors and lies, and plenty of malicious behavior was going on behind closed doors, though I wasn't ready to believe it was a coordinated effort or collusion was involved. Then certain people began openly mentioning the Whisper Network, and my attitude changed. And there's a lot of sourcing here of actual tweets of people who were involved in that, and this person eventually got inside the Whisper Network, which is called Comic Book Women. And it's a secret Facebook group, which means you have to be approved there. Let me just scroll down here. Key actors are people who, if you've been active on comics book Twitter, you know they're garbage people, and you know they're the people who instigate lots of nasty stuff on comics book Twitter. So, Jim, what do you think about a secret Facebook group for attacking people organized on Twitter?
Delete your Facebook account. Nothing good comes of Facebook anymore. Just stop.
I'm just saying.
And everything that's left is terrible. Delete it now.
Yeah. The social media, the sooner we all get off of social media, the better. Literally, the next story.
By the way, subscribe to our. Don't forget to subscribe and like our video
on YouTube and go on our Discord, because that's those are okay social media networks.
Obviously.
So this story came up literally as I was getting the show prepped for today. Is Pornhub is banning.
You did not
porn.
give me a link to this.
I did. It's in the second Pate bin. I updated the first Pate bin.
Thanks. Okay, keep going. I'll find it.
After 2 weeks since my Pornhub account was deleted, they finally told me the reason why, and it's because they found some of my vids are problematic and are considered unauthorized content. After 2 years that my account was up, they just decided that now it's a problem. I'm just frustrated that anything, because I know this will happen again over some stupid reason. Pornhub, of all places, isn't even a safe archive for not safe for work creators anymore. They recently even banned tags like tentacles, which has been a thing in hentai since forever. This, together with Twitter's shadow ban of not safe for work creators and other sites' very limiting guidelines, isn't helping out anymore at all. Sometimes I'm not sure if it's worth it to be continuing on this sort of thing. Sorry to be a downer. I'm sure feeling this will pass soon. And of course, they direct you to the Pornhub for an alternate video links and Newgrounds where this person is at. So we've talked before about the show about how there's a broad backing in the financial system for this cancellation of people's businesses and cancellation of people's freedom of speech that is to some degree embedded in our legal system. So, Jim, what do you think about Pornhub banning porn?
Okay. Can we have anything fun, or is no fun allowed, or now, or?
Well, I mean,
I don't get it.
The next set, there's going to be some not fun things. So, you remember how Drew Brees had to apologize like 7, 8, 9, 10 times about, saying that he thinks it's disrespectful to not kneel to the flag, and how everybody in the NFL was attacking him, and then he finally got quote unquote educated and he, learned about things. Well, NFL wide receiver Deshaun Jackson shares anti-Semitic quotes attributed to Hitler on Instagram. And there's not anywhere near the same amount of pushback coming from the NFL or from his fellow players.
Oh.
Of course, the Eagles released a statement on Tuesday morning calling Jackson's post offensive, harmful, and absolutely appalling. And he did post an apology. Let me see if I can find the apology here.
Did it start with the word oopsie? I made an oopsie doopsie?
It did not start with the word oopsie doopsie.
Oh.
Here we go. The Eagles said, we spoke with Deshaun Jackson about a social media post. Regardless,
hold on a second. I did not say that hentai was fun. I said porn was fun. Difference?
Yeah.
Carry on.
And let me just scroll down here. They don't actually have his. Oh, here we go. Here's the link to his Twitter apology, which is not properly formatted on this Philadelphia website. But here's the quote: "I want to apologize to the Jewish community, Jeff Lurie, Howie Roseman, Doug Pedersen, the Eagles organization, and our fans for my insensitive and ill-informed posts that I shared on social media." Jackson said, "My intention was to uplift, unite, and encourage our culture with positivity and light by quoting a Hitler. Unfortunately, that did not happen. I unintentionally hurt the Jewish community in the process, and for all of that, I'm sorry. Now, more than ever, we should work together to end discrimination of all types against all peoples and all communities." Now, that was posted on Tuesday at 7 p.m. The initial Hitler quote was posted. Let's see what's the timestamp on that was Monday. So it took him a full 2 days to apologize for posting Hitler on Twitter.
Oh.
So Jim, what do you think about NFL players supporting Hitler and not being called out on it?
Well, to be fair, Drew Brees did say you have to respect the flag. I mean, that's literally worse than Hitler.
Exactly. It's worse than Hitler. Exactly. So, have you been keeping up with the whole Johnny
I don't
Depp?
know what's worse, going into a concentration camp or having to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Exactly.
To be fair, they're both bad, but I mean, can we all agree that one's worse than the other?
So, I've been looking forward to talking to this one about you since the news came out. So, have you been keeping up with the Johnny Depp Amber Heard divorce shenanigans?
No, but this clearly looks like a real table.
A totally real thing that happened.
Yeah.
Look at how well organized Johnny Depp was as a drug user to have those perfect cinematic lines of cocaine.
Yeah.
And his branded drug box, his whiskey, his tobacco, his paraphernalia, which is a tampon applicator, because of course that's what you want to use as your tampon applicator. And he has a pirated Keith Richards CD. What a wonderful picture! But I want to open up with the best part of the whole story. So Amber Heard physically abused Johnny Depp, emotionally abused him. Do you know what the piece of resistance was? The last thing that made him say, I'm done.
Was it this photograph?
No, that happened years before they were married. She
Are you sure about
in their bed. She took a deuce in the bed.
Why are all the really hot women crazy? I shouldn't say that. It's terrible.
But clearly, this hot woman is crazy.
Yes.
That is unambiguous.
Undeniable.
That is undeniable. And Johnny Depp coined a nickname for her, Amber Turd, which was trending on Twitter once that came out in public.
Well, that's sexist.
Well, no.
Well, you're making. You're
everybody poops.
Right, but you're making fun of a strong woman who don't need no man, except Johnny Depp.
Mm-hmm. But yes, and so I posted the link to that umbrella guy because he does a pretty good analysis here of the drug scene.
So I
So
want to
this was
know. I want to
recorded
know.
in.
I want to know. Is that him passed out from drugs or passed out from getting hit by some sort of blunt object by I don't know, a
Well, actually,
relatively hot blonde girl? I'm just asking questions.
Amber Heard withheld his drugs from his drug rehab prescription, so he could have been having a reaction to her hiding his actual prescriptions that he needs for
Oh.
medicine. But this photo was taken in 2013, a year after they started dating, but she doesn't marry him for 2 more years later. And then a year after they're married, says he abused her. So, Jim, do
Hmm.
you think that this was possible a giant
Do I think
setup?
it's possible? Well, I want to believe.
So, and yeah, another article that I have a link here for is she withheld his drug rehab medication. So let's see what medicine she prevented him from having. It was his detox medication,
Oh.
roxycodone. He was going through withdrawal from that. So you work in the psych field. What is it like for people who are coming down off of pain medication addiction?
Oh, they like to. Depends on which one. If it's meth, it's a lot to
Well, I mean,
sleep.
this is related to oxy, so this is part of the oxycodone family of medication.
Oh, I'm kind of unfamiliar with heroin addicts. I
Um,
haven't seen a lot of heroin addict stuff going on that I know of.
yeah. So
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 I've seen a lot of meth. I've seen a lot of meth because that really messes up, eats your brain. So
yes, it does.
yeah.
Meth is no joke. So Johnny Depp has gone through some really hard times, and his career is going to get a rebound after he wins this case because, again, he recorded her mocking her beating him. So I have no doubt he's going to win this case, and he's going to probably have a career resurgence.
Good.
And if we have movies at that point in time, I encourage you to watch Johnny Depp's future movies.
Yeah, and one of
Like,
these movie theatras that I keep hearing about.
yeah, but you have to use a North Korean app to
Oh
get
yeah,
into one of them.
yeah,
So, as you know, things are being canceled because everything's racist now.
yeah.
But there are some heroes who are out there trying to stand up for freedom of speech. Airplane at 40, David Zucker defends the comedy classic's controversial jive talking sequence. Everything is so sensitive nowadays. And there's an editor's note. A previous version of the story was published on September 5th, 2019. The article has been updated to reflect the movie's 40th anniversary. Surely we can't be serious. 40 years ago in the summer of 1980, Airplane flew into theaters and made the friendly skies safe for laughter.
I think he is serious, and don't call him Shirley.
The disaster movie spoof became an era-defining hit and launched the directorial careers of writing partners David Zucker, Jim Abrams, and Jerry Zucker, better known by their comedic call sign Zaz. The trio went on to make such oft-quoted favorites as Top Secret, which we have reviewed, The Naked Gun. We should probably review the Naked Gun movies, but also we should review Airplane. And the joke that was too mean for the big screen. While Airplane is filled with gags that are funny in every age, some jokes play very differently in 2020 versus 1980. This includes moments like the I Speak Jive sequence, which might strike contemporary audiences as being out of step at a time when the ongoing Black Lives Matter protests are shining light on the way race is addressed in Hollywood comedies from the past and the present.
Yeah, well, they should have known that in 1980. They should just known.
Exactly. You should apologize for how people will be offended for things you do in the future.
Yeah, in 40 years
But
in the future.
the person who is that person there who spoke jive?
Who was that?
That actress. Who was that actress who spoke jive?
Who was that actress?
Well, she played a little TV mother you might have heard of from such television shows as Lassie.
Oh.
So the punchline of the joke was we get the whitest white bread woman we can and have her speak jive. That
Which
was
was a
the
good
joke.
joke. That's the
That was
joke.
the whole point of the joke. I mean, I hate to have to explain jokes, but there we are. So, Jim, what do you think about
That's the joke.
the clearly problematic movie that is Airplane by Zaz?
Can we just wrap this up so we can go watch Airplane? Because
Um,
it's much better than these garbage people trying to cancel it.
yeah,
Cancel a
yeah, it certainly is.
40-year-old movie classic.
But these garbage people are not just trying to cancel classic movies; they're trying to cancel movies that haven't even come out yet. New Shia LaBeouf movie gets accused of brown facing. Director David Ayer responds. So, Jim, I know what you're thinking. What is brown facing?
No. What I was thinking was how Dapperton is a racist for thinking that Airplane is his favorite comedy when it's clearly racist.
Exactly. How dare you, Dapperton? Uh, so, Jim, do you know what brown facing is?
It's like blackface, but with for Latinos. So you
Also for people from India, because we want to differentiate that black
oh,
people are black and brown people are brown.
how much you want to
Um,
bet the next thing that's getting canceled is Short Circuit and everything that the guy from what is that guy from Hackers?
yeah. That's probably
That's next.
that's probably on the list. Shia LaBeouf is playing a white boy who grew up in the hood in the new crime thriller, The Tax Collector, which should appeal to a lot of Jim's audience. Is the view of a criminal as a tax collector. But that hasn't stopped quite a few detractors from accusing the movie of brown facing. Director David Ayer has utilized social media to answer the accusations. Some of those opposing the movie aren't in agreement with Ayer's statements. The trailer for The Tax Collector arrived last week, and it has received its fair share of controversy since. The story follows two tax collectors, played by Shia and Bobby Soto. They are employed underneath a menacing crime lord named Wizard. So, how menacing can you be if you're named Wizard and you're a crime boss? You need to be the Wizard or the Menlo Park Wizard. You need to have something to precede Wizard. Many are upset with Shia LaBeouf's alleged use of brownface, which is the same as blackface, in depicting someone who is not the race of the performer. In the case, Shia LaBeouf appears to be using to many to be appropriating a Latino personality, and he has come under fire for using a Cholo accent.
Did we all just collectively forget what blackface is?
Yes,
And now we're just saying that
because
anybody who darkens their face to be another ethnicity for some sort of show.
well, I
That's
mean,
that's not what blackface was.
I cut out the article where they tried to get the Golden Girls canceled for blackfacing when they were using mud masks. But yes, people don't understand that the point of blackface was it's not the black makeup that makes blackface a problem. It's that it was making fun of black people in horribly racially stereotyped ways, frequently alluding to them being jungle primitives or animals. That was the point of why
Yeah.
blackface was offensive, or treating them in a derogatory manner of suggesting that they had inferior mental capacities. That
Mm-hmm.
was the point of why blackface was bad. Cholo is a term used to describe a man or boy of Mexican descent. Is often seen as
Mexican.
Mexican. It is often
Mexican.
seen. I was trying to quote Peggy Hill, so as to not culturally appropriate the word Mexican. It is often seen as a derogatory word, with people of mixed blood heritage getting labeled as such. It is often associated with younger men in street gangs. The term brown facing began to trend when the image of Shia LaBeouf appeared showing his character Creeper. And we scroll down here, you can see Creeper, who looks like a charming individual. And this guy, talks about tell all the kids how you're Hollywood's top cholo auteur and your pretzel reasons. Shia LaBeouf is sort of kind of playing a weird movie cholo in a cop movie, and how all of it isn't really brown facing. And here's other garbage people. So here's what David Ayer said. Really important answer. Shia is playing a white boy who grew up in the hood. This is a Jewish dude playing a white character who's also white in the movie. I grew up in the hood and I'm a white boy. Chicano culture is inclusive. I've seen whiteys, Asians, blacks, Filipinos all putting in work for the hood. It's all a part of street culture. Just a second.
Nice.
That was a little oopsie doopsie with my microphone. I don't like that. Many think that The Tax Collector is another cop movie from David Ayer, former member of the military and once embedded with the police force before he became a filmmaker. He clarified this is not a cop movie at all because it's, a movie featuring criminals. So what do you think about Shia LaBeouf going a little Hispanic?
I think I think everybody forgot what blackface was, and now they're just going after anyone who ever darkened their face.
But speaking about blackface, we mentioned how Black Panther was one of the best movies that Marvel's made from a financial standpoint.
Probably one of their better, but one of their better ones. I wouldn't say it's one of the best.
Well, no, from a financial standpoint. I'm not talking about from a...
Right, and I'm also saying it's also one of the better ones. Not one of the best ones, but one of the better ones for sure.
So Anthony Mackie has been very intelligent and very critical of current Hollywood culture, both from a business standpoint and from a standpoint of how the culture is perceived by the mass culture. So he had some things to say. When The Falcon and Winter Soldier comes out, I'm the lead. When Snowpiercer comes out, you're the lead. We have the power and the ability to ask those questions. It really bothers me that I've done 7 Marvel movies where every producer, every director, every stunt person, every costume designer, every PA, every single person has been white. Then, when you do Black Panther, you have a black director, black producer, you have a black costume designer, you have a black stunt choreographer, and I'm like, that's more racist than anything else, because if you can only hire black people for the black movie, are you saying they're not good enough when you have a mostly white cast? Hire the best person for the job, even if that means we're going to get the best 2 women, we're going to get the best 2 men. So what do you think about this racism from the Walt Disney Corporation?
Are you kidding me? It's all it's all terribly racist. Do you remember some of the cartoons they used to make? I remember a little one called Fantasia where it had a racist Pegasus. What is it? What is it? Centaur?
A centaur.
Yeah, I remember a black centaur with blackface. Yeah. Remember when Mickey Mouse put on blackface? Remember that?
Yeah.
So
those are all things. So now I want to talk about something that I have been looking forward to talking to you about is, to quote a classic libertarian meme, if not for the governments, who will have built the roads? Now, if it's not for the roads, who will commit the hate crimes? So just to show, vandalizing and destroying public property, that is fine and approved of by the government, but possibly having a bad tire and going across a public mural for Pride Month, that is a potential hate crime, and you have to answer to the police. So, Jim, what do you think about this lovely little bit of 2020 here?
So someone drove on the road.
Now, he was going fast. He was accelerating, so he could have just been a jerk and decided he wanted to drive his car really fast.
Yeah, because he was driving a Mustang, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Or some kind of Mustang-like vehicle, Charger.
Some kind of muscle car.
Yeah.
And yes, I agree, Huck. This year needs a fast-forward button. I am tired of 2020. The only reason I wouldn't fast-forward 2020 is, what if 2021 is worse? What if next year, this time, we're looking back going, man, remember when we could only complain that we had to be forced to stay in our houses and we couldn't watch movies? Now we have to stay in our houses. We can't work. We're all getting paid by the government, but nobody knows where money is coming from. And we all get our food in gray boxes provided by our new government, Amazon.
The good government, good league.
Exactly. So, but what do you think about declaring public murals that frequently are graffiti a hate crime to try to clean those up?
Oh, that's a hate crime. How dare you? Were you trying to say Black Lives Don't Matter by removing graffiti of Black Lives Matter?
Exactly.
Obviously.
Wait, and we definitely consider Black Lives Matter. But
well, hey, we're part of the Good Guys League. If you're against the Good Guys League, you must be against good guys. It must be for bad guys, right?
Exactly. I mean, Joe Jorgensen would agree with that cromulent logic, don't you think, Jim?
We'll see.
We'll see if Joe answers Michael Malice's question. Hopefully she does.
She won't.
So we've talked a whole lot about cancel culture, and we're going to be talking a whole lot about it more. But we're going
to have we ever talked about cuck mouth?
Well, I mean, we've certainly shown examples of that meme in reality. So we have somebody we featured previously, the man, the myth, the legend known as Chuck Wendig. And a female author claims that Chuck Wendig has stomped all over women to prove that he's a better feminist. I mean, I am shocked to hear that a man who would go on to violent Twitter rants about the government would do that. That doesn't seem like our boy Chuck. So let me just scroll down here to the Facebook post, because she actually posted this on Facebook, I think was where she got into the finer details of things. Yeah, okay, so here's the Facebook post where she got into the finer details. And on that note, because I'm going to set fire to myself anyway, I might as well be thorough. Chuck Wendig demanded repeatedly that I be accountable for the behavior of a man I worked with when that man did wrong, up to and including the phrase, "Well, you shouldn't have let him go to the convention then." He told me that he didn't care when I said Holden Shearer was fabricating claims against an Arab American for being a terrorist and thief in an effort to cover up John Mork's harassment of multiple female members of the community. He told me HWA wouldn't do anything because Jack Ketchum was one of their darlings, and everyone warned women that they shouldn't be alone in a room with Jack, because you know what, that does something, right? You know, like, hey, don't be alone with that guy who's a rapist who's here. I mean, look, we're not doing anything about him being a rapist, but just don't be alone with him. He's probably going to rape you.
Yeah.
But by the way, we want to be inclusive and we want to be inviting to women in our hobby. He has in the past compared rape to burglary, then deleted the post when called out. He named me as a protector of harassers and abusers, but never named the person doing the harassing. His fans harassed and bullied me for 6 months, to the point where I was having daily suicidal ideations. I was not the worst hit by that brigade, however. So, and the article from Bleeding Cool goes into details about Mike Cole and his being a creeper and a predator, and Chuck Wendig, who did have a response, says my Twitter account remains locked due to Gamergate style harassment of me, death threats, doxing, harassing my followers and repliers, tied to Internet Archive situation where he sued the Internet Archives to prevent people in a lockdown from having access to library information, because that's what's important right now.
Mm-hmm.
But those who don't follow me wouldn't have seen my recent statements, or those of us who he blocked, because we told him, hey, buddy, maybe you shouldn't violently threaten judges for, doing their job. So I thought it'd be best to put something out here. Recently, it has come to light that a handful of authors inside science fiction and fantasy publishing have engaged in various acts of harassment and abuse against women. These authors and authors which I am friendly, particularly online, Paul Kruger, Mike Cole, Sam Sykes, and I'm deeply sorry if that friendliness or if me boosting their work and amplifying their voices has in any way given them cover for their actions or given them unearned trust. I never saw harassment or abuse in play, but my ignorance of it is not an excuse, blah, blah, blah. So what do you think about Chuck Wendig being a terrible garbage person?
What are you talking about? Like, these women need to step aside and realize that men are better at everything and that he's the better feminist.
Oh no.
Oh, wait a minute.
That's the opposite of how these things are supposed to work. But this is not the big cancel culture story, and we're going to go deep into the big cancel culture story in a magical world called Harry Potter. So J.K. Rowling has been making some very strong arguments for biological determinism of gender. Jim and I are not going to be talking about that because that's not really relevant to what's happening. Is Harry Potter fan sites are distancing themselves from J.K. Rowling over her gender comments, which seems very weird. But you know what? You're free. You have the right to do whatever you want to do about that.
I was just going to say, how could you disassociate the author from the work on a page? But then I realized that propertarians are eating up Kurt Doolittle right now. So carry on.
Now, another author who works for the same publishing company is like, hey, I stand with J.K. Rowling. She has a right to her opinion, and I kind of agree with her position on biological determinism. Unfortunately, Miss Gillian Phillips is not a multi-billionaire author, so she was fired. from her job for saying that the billionaire has a right to her opinion, and that she agrees with her opinion. This and other events has led to Harper's, a publishing company, having a letter that was signed by 150 people, including Bill T. Jones, Winston Marsalis, Jennifer Finney Bolin, Noam Chomsky, J.K. Rowling, Margaret Atwood, and Salman Rushdie, expressing their concern over the illiberal trend in the national reckoning.
And a lot of people on the left are trying to eat Noam Chomsky.
Whoa, that's I was going to be getting into that here in just a moment.
Oh.
But let me just read this letter because this is an important thing. Our cultural institutions are facing a moment of trial. Powerful protests for racial and social justice are leading to overdue demands for police reform, along with wider calls for greater equality and inclusion across our society, not least in higher education, journalism, philanthropy, and the arts. But this needed reckoning has also intensified a new set of moral attitudes and political commitments that tend to weaken our norms of open debate and toleration of differences in views of ideological conformity. As we applaud the first development, we also raise our voices against the second. The forces of illiberalism are gaining strength throughout the world and have a powerful ally in Donald Trump, who represents a real threat to democracy. But resistance must not be allowed to harden into its own brand of dogma or coercion, which right-wing demagogues are already exploiting. The democratic inclusion we want can only be achieved if we speak out against the intolerant climate that has set in all sides. The free exchange of information and ideas, the lifeblood of a liberal society, is daily becoming more constricted. While we have come to expect this on the radical right, censoriousness is also spreading more widely in our culture. Now, it's very important that this is one of the themes of this letter because Margaret Atwood, who wrote a book called The Handmaid's Tale, which has been made into a terrible TV show and an adequate movie, it focused on how the religious right and the irreligious left were both united around certain forms of censorship. And this was a book she wrote in the 70s and 80s. We uphold the value of robust, even caustic counter-speech from all quarters, but it is now all too common to hear calls for swift and severe retribution in response to transgressions of speech and thought. More troubling still, institutional leaders in a spirit of panicked damage control are delivering hasty and disproportionate punishments instead of considered reforms. So this is a very important, very well thought out letter. Jim, this is the kind of letter that, while you may not agree with some of the political content in the letter, this is exactly what we need, right?
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling came out and endorsed it because obviously that's her position on freedom of speech. So we're going to skip the J.K. Rowling tweet and go to the next one down there. Of course, when there was another person whose freedom of speech was being brought into question, J.K. Rowling did have a very different opinion in 2017. Our good boy Felix, for those who think fascism is an edgy accessory. So she's on the free speech bandwagon because she's under attack. But still, we're going to take that as a win, right? Right, Jim? That's a win. Somebody has learned. Let's go to one of the other authors on the list. I did not know who else had signed this letter. I thought I was endorsing a well-meaning if vague message about internet shaming. I did know Noam Chomsky, Simon, and Atwood were in, and I thought I was in good company. The consequences
will never be
mine
the
to
same.
bear.
Oh,
I am so sorry. And people mentioned this tweet can reply. Nobody is mentioned in this tweet, and thus it is achieved the new tweet ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was a mistake she made. That was a very big mistake she made. And other people who signed the letter are saying, I do not endorse this at Harper's letter. I'm in contact with Harper's about a retraction. A letter she signed. And liberals who signed the Harper's letter condemning cancel culture are now retracting and rescinding their support for it. And we'll go into the next link here. Bolin signed a letter denouncing cancel culture and then apologized when they tried to cancel her over it. This action does so much more to legitimize the letter, so I'm actually glad she is bending the knee and crying for forgiveness. It proves the absurdity of it all. And let's go with the next one here. Also, Ezra Klein and signed this, that a lot of debates that sell themselves as being about free speech are actually about power, and there's a lot of power in being able to claim and hold the mantle of free speech defender. So he has forced one of his employees and co-founder of his news magazine to not make public comments about issues they disagree with on social media. And he said, do you want me to comment, or do you want me to stay to our personal public agreement? And last but not least, there's a counter letter being circulated, and man, are some of the accusations out there are. In fact, a number of the signatories have made a point of punishing people who've spoken out against them, including Barry Weiss, who made a name for herself at Columbia University undergrad by harassing and infringing upon the speech of professors she considered to be anti-Israel, and later attempting to shame multiple media outlets into firing freelance journalist Erin Biba for her tweets. Kathy Politi, whose transphobic rhetoric has extended to trying to deny trans journalists access to professional networking tools. Emily Yoffe, who's spoken out against sexual assault survivors expressing their free speech rights. Anne Marie Slaughter, who terminated her Google-funded organization's partnership with a Google critic. And Carrie Nelson, whose support of free speech apparently does not extend to everyone, just to name a few. And the one who apologized to Jesse Senegal, another signer, is a another one of the signers, Jesse Senegal, is a cis man infamous for advancing his career by writing derogatorily about trans issues in 2018. Senegal had a front page article in The Atlantic expressing skepticism about the benefits of gender affirming care for trans youth. No trans writer has been afforded the same space. Senegal often faces and dismisses criticism from trans people, but he had a much larger platform than any trans journalist. In fact, a 2018 Jezebel report, because that's a legitimate source, found that Senegal was part of a closed Google listserv of more than 400 left-leaning media elites who praised his work, with not a single trans person in the group. Which is kind of interesting how that connects into the Marvel story we talked about earlier, doesn't it?
Yep.
So, Jim, what do you think about the attempts to burn J.K. Rowling as a witch?
I just think it's funny that they're going after Noam Chomsky now. Like, oh, why would he support this? It's like Noam Chomsky wrote an introduction to a Holocaust denial book because the author was going through legal trouble, and was it France or something? I forget. Yeah. And his whole argument and the whole introduction of the book is, this book is nonsense, but he should have the right to say these things. You either believe in free speech or you don't.
Pick one.
Yeah. If you want to ban certain types of speech, you're not for free speech, and people want to have it both ways. It's kind of funny. Like I think if like you held a referendum tomorrow for like should free speech be allowed, it would not pass if people understood the implications of that. Because people would say, "Oh yeah, I'm for free speech," and then you go like, "Well, what about Holocaust denial? What about racism?" That's when people start going like, "Oh no, that needs to be banned. Oh yeah, that needs to be banned too." So, but so Noam Chomsky, who has many failings, many failings. I want to reiterate how many failings he has because it's quite a lot. The one thing that he's really good on,
all sorts of areas,
right? And he's also
not one of those areas.
Yeah, one of these this area he's really good about.
So we're going to be going through a little set of quick bullet points of a lot of the things that have happened the last 2 weeks in relation to cancel culture. So the CEO of Goya praised Donald Trump, and woke people are throwing out Goya products all around the country. So they have said that 50 Hispanic American leaders have come out to condemn him for saying that Orange Man might not be bad. Now, you know how Facebook has been accused of promoting propaganda. So, you know who encouraged Facebook to promote propaganda? The New York Times. They threatened to drop Facebook advertising if they didn't run their propaganda news article 1619, which has been robustly criticized by historians in an attempt to reframe the historical debate on race.
Larry, come back. And a wild Larry disappears. Let's try to get him back. He's probably still talking. That's probably the funniest thing about it. All right, let's see. Let's try moving the server to east. Larry. 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 I think he just now figured out he was... Oh no, he's gone. Oh. Well, I don't know where this story is going, so I can't fill in time. I don't know what he expects me to do. Maybe we should just read chat. How about that? The Cancun's will short circuit. Guys from Pittsburgh. Good point. This year needs a fast forward button. Let's see. Anyone notice that the I was drunk once was trending? Well, I guess if you're always drunk, then I guess you were drunk only once. Steven Pinker signed the thing. Nice. I'm actually telling people that we need to let the left go back on its previous anti-speech stances if we want to move forward in the right direction. Larry died. Larry. That was a good time for a fat farm. Yeah. Wish I had my intermission music. And I don't have the intermission music here. Larry. Larry. Well, while we're waiting.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Let's play refreshment quiz. What's crunchy, crispy, tasty, butter-drenched? You're right. Our hot buttered popcorn. What's bubbly, refreshing, ice-cold, delicious, and thirst-quenching? Right again.
Sorry about that.
My
Discord kind of fell down the hole for a minute.
Oh.
And my internet connection was being a little poopy. So let's see if that's fixed itself while I'm temporarily on my phone.
Nice.
Come on. Come on. So could you start reading that Ben Shapiro article? Because it's loading kind of a little slow on me here. And I'm going to...
The New York Times massive campaign to pressure social media giants into restricting freedom of information, particularly dissemination from sources other than mainstream outlets, has now kicked into high gear. Text columnist Kevin Rose warned the Times readership earlier this year that they should buckle up for another Facebook election in which the platform will supposedly be overrun with hyper-partisan misinformation, like the kind that proved decisive force in 2016. Ruse isn't the only voice at the Times promoting the notion that Facebook's role in allowing free flow of information results in election corruption. Contributing opinion writer Kara Swisher has devoted outsized attention to the supposed problem of Facebook's unwillingness to crack down on those she deems insufficiently woke. Boy. So. I don't
if you could cut down to the part where it talks about the advertising for the 1619 campaign.
Well, as soon as I stop getting notifications and pop-ups from Ben Shapiro's site, maybe.
You know, we're gonna skip that because again, maybe that's why my Discord crashed, is because Ben Shapiro's garbage site. Let's see if.
I wonder why. I mean, sorry. Hold on, wrong show. Let's see. Moving along.
Come on.
So
What's going on with
systematic
you?
discrimination as opposed to hiring based on merit. You know,
Yes,
if we can't pull up things, you want to just move into reviews and then save all this for later, next week.
Yeah, let's move into reviews then,
Yeah.
since we're having a technical oopsie doopsie.
We. Who the fuck we?
Well, we as in the show. The show is having an oopsie doopsie.
So
The fact that the oopsie doopsie is happening on my end doesn't negate the fact that it's a we problem right now when we have, the show.
hey, I didn't sign shit. So anyway, so the first movie that we're going to be reviewing is The Disaster Artist. Speaking of disasters, which we just watched in the. We totally didn't illegally watch in my Discord server for Movie Group because we wouldn't break copyright law.
No,
No.
of course not.
No.
Everybody was perfectly legally streaming it. You can legally stream that, right?
We all had Netflix accounts that we legally had.
Exactly.
and we were watching
Exactly.
it that way.
Everybody was watching simultaneously on their Netflix, which
Yeah.
is perfectly legal.
I don't know if we actually ended up reviewing this for the show because it's been a while, and we're just looking
It's
for
been
anything.
a while, but
Yeah. So I've been listening to the Disaster Artist audiobook because I have lots of free time sitting in chairs in mental health facilities, watching patients who are sleeping for a solid 12 hours. They are sleeping the whole 12 hours, and I'm supposed to keep an eye on them, which is you need something to do. You need something to do. Otherwise, you'll probably need to get a bed next to them because you'll go crazy or fall asleep. So I started listening to the audiobook version of the Disaster Artist book, and that inspired me to watch the film again and kind of try to see what differences was. So you've seen The Room. Have you seen the Disaster Artist?
I did.
Oh, you did? What did you make of it?
I thought it was a very good movie for what it was doing. It was being a very good, realistic behind the scenes sort of thing. Obviously, you can't be purely realistic in a behind the scenes book you're adapting into a movie, but as close as you can.
Yeah, it is as close as you can while still trying to string along some sort of 3-act structure that's going on. So a lot of facts were kind of moved around. But basically, James Franco and what's his brother's name? Dave Franco?
Yeah.
Yeah, so play Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero, respectively.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark. Who Greg Sestero wrote the book, The Disaster Artist, which is a fantastic audiobook, by the way. He also does he actually does a better Tommy Wiseau impression than James Franco, but James Franco's impression is pretty great. It kind of takes you out of at the very beginning of the movie. I don't know about you, but in the very beginning of the movie, I was kind of like, oh, this is probably not going to be good. But as it progressed, you kind of grow on his interpretation like really quickly.
I mean, it's probably like what it would be like to meet Tommy Wiseau in real life.
Yeah.
Like you hear that voice, like going, "What in the world is this guy on?"
Everything. So the story is kind of through Greg's eyes, how he was becoming a struggling actor, met Tommy, saw a quality in Tommy that he really liked, even though he thought everything else was goofy and terrible. There was one aspect that he did find commendable and wanted to try to get closer to Tommy in order to try to get a hold of that aspect, which was his fearlessness. Like, he was terrible in every single way, bizarrely terrible, but he had no fear and he was able to perform in front of any group, anywhere, and he just wanted that feeling of fearlessness and ended up becoming good friends with Tommy Wiseau, who made his millions, ? And he is from he's from Louisiana? ?
Via Paris, via some country in Eastern
Yeah.
Europe, maybe the Ukraine.
Yeah, possibly the Ukraine. I don't remember. And he became really good friends with him, and they decided, well, hey, we're not doing very good in Hollywood, which is not entirely true with Greg Sestero's case. He actually was kind of successful when he first went there, and it kind of dried up after a while. But the movie depicts him as like he couldn't find jobs anywhere, which wasn't true.
Because that's the more stereotypical movie story.
Yeah. So they just needed to kind of switch some things around here, and they decided to make a movie together. And what it turned out to be was one of the greatest, best worst movies of all time, if not the best worst movie of all time. I think it was Troll for a while, but I think The Room has
Troll 2.
Troll
2,
excuse me,
not
Troll 2. Well, Trolls World Tour was equally bad, but not entertaining as Troll 2.
Right.
All right. So at least we get that out of the way. And it ended up becoming a huge sensation, and basically this kind of chronicles what all the dealings were behind the making of The Room, and some of the stuff is pretty fascinating. I think the way he describes some of the stuff in the book, we're going into more detail, kind of adds layers to how crazy these things were, whereas this one was kind of paper thin. But even still, that paper thin view of the way a lot of the choices that were made during the production of this movie were still like, what the hell? I would love to just be there like a fly on the wall just to see what happened during the production of that. I think there is some kind of some problems with the movie. Like like they don't really kind of lay out like Greg's motivation right away. I mean, for hanging out with him for that long, you can understand like, okay, I'm going to hang out with him just to get that fearlessness. He achieves it, but it's like, but why are you hanging around him? He seems like a jerk now. They don't explain that. Where in the book there is an explanation. And it's multifaceted and it's kind of hard to explain in a movie, but they needed to have something there. I thought it was kind of lacking there. Everybody's performance was pretty good. I don't think Dave Franco was a good choice for Greg in terms of casting, but it works.
So here's a question for you, Jim. Would this have been a good 10 to 12 episode
I think so.
TV series?
Yeah, I was thinking about that after I was during actually listening to the audiobook. I was like, I think that would have probably ended up becoming a better like a Netflix series or something like that.
I mean, admittedly, you couldn't do it like a multi-season Netflix series. Like
No.
You could do like a one full 12 episode season.
Yeah, we probably would have gotten into a lot more detail, like got some more information about what really happened with the shaving the beard scene, which that was completely fabricated for the film. But there is an actual interesting story with the whole shaving the beard thing off, which they kind of had to leave on the cutting room floor, so to speak, or the script writing room floor. Some of the stuff about like some of the crazy things Tommy did while he was mad, scary things that actually almost put Greg's life at danger, also was kind of left out. Some explanations about how the filming of some of these scenes that were done that adds more layers and complexity to the amount of crazy that is Tommy Wiseau could have been explained more. Yeah, a lot of that stuff is kind of left on the cutting room floor, but hey, you only have like 90 minutes to 2 hours to make a decent movie, and it's an 11-hour audiobook, and it's dense with information. I mean, dense with information, so understandable. But I still think it's a good watch, especially it's a good kind of toe in the waters to The Room and the Disaster Artist book, which I highly recommend both. All right. And the next one I watched was a little movie called The Talented Mr. Ripley, which was nominated but not winning of Academy Awards for 1999. Won a bunch of Golden Globes.
Jude Law and Matt Damon both in it, both fairly early in their respective careers.
Yeah, and I forget the girl who played. It's Gwyneth Paltrow, but what is the other girl? The other girl that played. She was in The Aviator. Forget her name.
Yeah.
But anyways, basically it's a story about this guy who gets hired by this man who wants him to who is a fellow alumni of this guy, which I can't remember his name right now for some reason. Dickie. He finds out that this guy, the father of Dickie finds this guy who is an alumni of the school that he went to, that his son went to, and was like, "Hey, I'll pay you $1,000 to go to Europe to find my son, who's like interested in jazz and he wants to move to Europe to come back home and get rid of this crazy idea of that, of whatever goal life changes he wants to make. And I'll pay you $1,000." And so he goes down there, and as he meets Dickie, he finds out really quickly that he's really great and he really loves him, and he wants to be him. And the obsession just starts getting more and more out of hand. Murders ensue. The reason why I wanted to watch this movie is because this movie is referenced quite a bit in the book, The Disaster Artist. It's one of the inspirations for The Room. It was this movie that Tommy Wiseau actually saw and was just moved by it so much that he wanted to actually write a script and direct his own movie. Which they don't kind of explain in the movie, but there was a nod in the Disaster Artist film about this movie. But the I was actually kind of surprised about how great this movie was, because I haven't really heard of it too much. I mean, I've heard rumors about it, but I've never heard anyone glow about this movie. Kind of felt left out. I really recommend this movie. I don't want to get into like a lot of details and specifics, but because that's kind of a spoiler.
It's a solid movie.
It's a very solid movie.
Yeah. The reason it didn't do well, though, is it was very clearly this is a arty kind of movie, and it was trying to sell Jude Law and Matt Damon both at respective points in their career when they weren't really arty movie actors.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can't really talk about it too much because pretty much a lot of the beats after that kind of gets into spoiler territory big time. But yeah, like this. So if you want to kind of know the inspiration behind The Room, here's one of them. We can probably get into some Tennessee Williams movies later on, because that was Streetcar Named Desire and
all that.
Yeah, was a big inspiration too. But this one was the one that moved Tommy to actually sit down and hash out a script for our movie. So, Eurovision
hashing
song.
Out a script was not easy.
No, well, yeah, he didn't even know how many pages it was. Yeah, how long is a movie script? How many pages is a movie script?
Will Ferrell went and did a movie for Netflix, which is good because we can't go to theaters. So this is about a young man growing up in Iceland who wants to be the winner of the Eurovision Song Contest. So do you know what Eurovision is, Jim?
Yes. But you might want to explain it.
So for those of you who don't know, Eurovision is a song contest where it's like American Idol, kind of, but for all of Europe. And all the European countries go in, they compete. You're not allowed to vote for people from your own country, so there's all sorts of weird political alliances that form. And it's if you're into reality television, it's something you would probably enjoy. I'm not into that. So Will Ferrell plays a typical Will Ferrell character. What would you say are common traits of a Will Ferrell character, Jim?
Stupid,
yes.
yelling a lot, getting
yes.
frustrated.
Yes.
Rolling around on the floor.
There was not a whole lot of that. So that was a low amount for a Will Ferrell movie. Keep going.
Screaming obscenities.
There was no obscenities. So the story's about him. You got the basics. The story's about him and the woman he loves. She loves him so much she's spent her whole life with him, chasing his dream of becoming a Eurovision celebrity. And she's a really talented singer. He's a talented songwriter. Unfortunately, they're not really good. But there is a conspiracy that happens in the Icelandic competition for Eurovision, which allows them to go on to the semifinals, and then they go on a little journey, and they learn things about themselves and their relationship, and they're like, oh, blah blah blah, and then they find out that the real Eurovision Song Contest was their relationship and the friends and family they made along the way.
Oh.
This is funnier than the most recent Will Ferrell comedies I have seen.
Is it better than Holmes and Watson? Or
I mean, getting hit in the testicles with a sledgehammer would be better than Holmes and Watson. So yes, it is absolutely better.
Okay.
Agree
to disagree.
You disagree that being hit in the testicles isn't better than Holmes and Watson?
It's just marginally better. I'm holding a very nuanced opinion about this. I mean, if you were to present me those two options, I would have to really think about it and get back to you.
You have to think, do I really want to get pain in my nuts right now?
But the other side is, well, Farrell. Okay.
Big thunk.
Yeah.
So what is next on the review?
I have a picture of people holding guns and a short-haired woman in the back and a couple of guys.
What does it say on? What does it say on the sheet while I'm still trying to
Forbes
fix my
image?
Bollocks. Does it say a name above the image?
I'm getting it right now. The Old Guard.
All right, so The Old Guard. The Old Guard is a comic book TV series that's been made for Netflix, and it was designed to have a multiple season. That was the point of the Forbes article. So it stars Charlize Theron and a bunch of other actors who are all good, solid actors, but they're not people you would know. You would know Charlize Theron. Oh, the guy who plays the black character who's the Baron Mordo in Doctor Strange is also in it. So those are the two actors you know. And it's all about a group of immortal warriors who are going on their journey through the trials and troubles and strife, and a large pharmaceutical company wants to get a hold of them because they're immortals. That would be a cure for most known diseases. And there's a new immortal who comes into the picture, and we get to be introduced to their world through her eyes. What I thought was really great about this movie is it's a little less than 2.5 hours. So you could have taken this movie, split it up, made it 5 TV episodes. Or you could have stuffed in 5 to 7 TV episodes of filler and made it a boring and generic Netflix series. And that was why I asked you about The Disaster Artist, because I've been running into this recurring thing when I'm seeing streaming service series is like, well, this should have been a movie. Should have cut out all the accessory nonsense and just focus on the movie. So it's a good movie. I highly recommend it. Action solid.
Okay. Warrior Nun?
Warrior Nun. So I gave you 2 images there. So one of those images, the first one is from the series, and the second image is from the comic book it was based upon. So
that's
Jim,
radically different.
That is radically different. So Jim, which of those 2 images says to you, man, I really want to I really don't know which one is better. What would you think? Which of those 2 images would you rather see a series of?
The sexy nun showing her butt and her legs.
Exactly. But apparently that is not what the folks who made this movie thought.
Then why?
So that I don't know. So Warrior Nun in the TV series is about a young girl who had a horrible condition that caused her to have paralysis. And she's killed by somebody. I'm not going to go into details as to who killed her or why, but she's killed, and that's the setup of the show. And then a warrior nun dies, and she has the legacy and power of the warrior nun to come in and become the new warrior nun, be restored to life, and all of that. So this is a series where we see her fighting with the Catholic Church, even though she's a warrior nun. We see her fighting with science and all of that. So this is a perfect example of, you could have cut that down to make it be just a movie. You could cut it down to be like a 2.5-hour movie and it would have been fine. But instead what we did was we made it into a series, and it is very boring, very forgettable, but will probably get picked up for a second season because that is what happens with Netflix. So don't watch it. It's a fine show, but just don't watch it. So what's next?
Unsolved Mysteries.
Okay, so Jim, do you remember Unsolved Mysteries?
Yes, and I don't understand how you can bring it back without that guy.
Without Robert Stack? Well, you could have brought it back with any guy. But for some reason, it's just the meat and no potatoes of the original series.
Oh.
It's just, oh, hey, here's some mysterious stuff. And it's fine at doing that, but there's not anything really off the wall weird, which is what I always liked about Unsolved Mysteries, is like Robert Stack saying, hey, you know, these planes disappeared in this part of the Atlantic, and was it a UFO? I don't know.
And
This
where
was
did Bill
before we
Cooper
had
go
real-
now? If he were my, it's like if he was around, I wish he was my boyfriend. So that way I could look at across from him in the hallway, drinking a morning cup of coffee. And sorry.
Yeah,
about that.
exactly, exactly. That was the kind of show it used to be. But the reason I'm featuring this as a review is because I watched it because I had fond memories as a kid of watching the old Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack, because that was a good show. And there was a thing that was on that is of particular significance to myself and somebody else you know by the name of Jeffrey Tucker. Because there was somebody who disappeared, and then turns out he died under disputed circumstances. The police say it was a suicide. The medical examiner says, there's a whole lot of injuries not consistent with suicide here, buddy. What's going on? And they found a strange note in his office that the FBI said, it's not a suicide note. It could be a sign he was having a psychotic break, though. And he worked for a company called Porter Stansberry and Associates, which worked for a larger company called Agora Incorporated, which is active in libertarian circles, and at one point in time employed a Mr. Jeffrey Tucker to try to sell garbage to libertarians. So they were talking about all sorts of shady stuff with their business, and they said, if you have any information, please contact us at Unsolved Mysteries. So I have contacted Unsolved Mysteries. So a thing I always imagined doing as a kid, just for humor, is now a real thing that I have done.
Nice.
It's now an accomplishment in my life. And that's the only reason I brought this show up for review today.
So what episode was it? So I could actually go and
That
find
was the
that
first episode.
Oh,
That's the very first one.
is Jeffrey
The
Tucker?
second-
Do they show Jeffrey Tucker in it? Please.
They did not show Jeffrey Tucker. He was not interviewed. Probably because he has an NDA for this corporation saying, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
That's probably what happened. Though I have talked in confidence with Jeffrey Tucker about those things, so yeah. So let's see. Next up, now that my computer...
Killing Gunther.
Killing Gunther. So Killing Gunther is a action movie about a group of up-and-coming young assassins who want to kill a older, more established assassin and become the guy, the best of the best assassin. Well, this is an interesting movie because who do you think plays Gunther? I say as you're looking at the image, which has who's playing Gunther on the front of it.
Kobe Smulders?
No.
Is it Taron Killian?
No. Who's
I don't
on the
know.
picture? Who's on that picture there?
I don't know.
Just a second. Didn't I send you the one? Didn't I send you
Is
the
it,
one with the?
Arnold Schwartz.
Yeah, that's who it is.
I don't think I can say the last part of his name without getting banned on YouTube, though. It's kind of racist.
Well, I mean, yeah, and we were going to be having a article we're going to talk more about that discusses how mentioning things that are black it leads to YouTube oopsie doopsies.
Yeah.
So Arnold basically has an oversized cameo in this movie, and he's playing the villain. And it's kind of neat how, from a business standpoint, they came up with this script, they sold it to Netflix, Arnold needs some money, so Arnold has to come in here, get a nice sized paycheck, and they have a big fight with him at the end of the movie. So it's a fun movie, lots of entertaining action sequences. You get to see Arnold being funny and going into his comedic range. I strongly recommend Killing Gunther if you want to watch stuff on Netflix. It's burning a hole in your brain. Now, since Jim is on a little hiatus here, I'm going to mention one of the stories I was about to mention before everything crashed. NBC Universal News Group says its company will strive to have 50% of their organization be women and 50% of their total workforce being people of color.
Oh.
So, yeah, so I jumped into another story because I didn't want to jump into the review that we were both going to do.
Yeah,
Because,
I'm back.
Yeah, you're back now. So let's talk about the Dollar Trilogy, which is one of the great movies of all time. Great movie series, starring a great actor, starring a legendary director, having a legendary musician behind it.
Who just passed away recently, which is the inspiration for me wanting to sit down and binge watch all 3 movies in a row, which was amazing. So I had only seen a Fistful of Dollars. I have not seen the other 2 movies. I've heard the Good, Bad, and the Ugly theme a million times, including Ecstasy of Gold. Beautiful.
Who hasn't heard that a million times?
Ecstasy of Gold is absolutely brilliant. In fact, the first time I actually heard Ecstasy of Gold was I don't know if you're familiar with this. It's kind of a niche, kind of hipster band. Not too many people know about it. It was Metallica. Have you heard of them?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
They did this thing 20 years ago or so, where they got along a symphony orchestra to play along with their metal band. And they opened up their concert by playing Symphony of Gold. And
one of my favorite Metallica songs is No Leaf Clover.
Yeah.
So I know that album very well.
Yeah. The Master of Puppets version on there is not that good, but the rest of the album is great. Fantastic. I mean, Master of Puppets on there is serviceable at best, but either way, getting off topic. So I was like, you know what? I'd seen Fistful of Dollars only because I was again, I was sitting for a mental health patient, and they fell asleep, and I was like, well, I have access to their TV because I was at a fancy dancy hospital. And I was like, oh, what kind of free movies they had on? And I ended up watching Rampage, Bumblebee, a whole bunch of other movies. And I was like, oh, you know what? I don't think I've ever seen A Fistful of Dollars. Let's give that a view. And it was pretty good. So basically, there's 3 movies to this. There's a fistful of dollars for a few dollars more, and The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, which for some reason this picture only shows the last 2 movies, but whatever. The first 2 movies are kind of boilerplate, kind of westerns, but they're done extremely well. It's not boring at all. It's not boilerplate in the terms of like, oh, this is boring. I think it's like the gold standard of that kind of cowboy comes into town, sees a bunch of bad people kind of overrunning the town, and decides he was going to be the good guy and take out the bad guys and save the girl who's the damsel in distress, and not fall in love with the damsel in distress, but just rescue her and leave. Get what he's owed and leave. So Clint Eastwood stars as the man with no name, who was credited as Joe, but no one ever calls him Joe. No one ever knows his name. He gets a nickname in the third one, Blondie, by one of the characters, but he is the man with no name. He doesn't ever expulge his name to anyone. And that's pretty much the first 2. The second one I probably would say is better than the first one, only because we got to see Lee Van Cleef, who is
an amazing actor.
Who's an amazing actor, who I can now understand why Les Claypool prefers him to Clint. He definitely has some
Actually, wait,
charisma and charms.
Did you watch Escape from New York?
No.
Oh, he was the head of the police.
I'm gonna get hate mails for not seeing any of those. For either one of the. Wasn't there 3 Escape from movies?
No. There's 2, and then there's one that's been in development hell.
Okay, but you know the song that they were talking about was his westerns, so I had never seen any of his westerns. So this is that's kind of a first for me. So yeah, in that respect, I did like it more. And then the good, bad, and the ugly kind of goes somewhere a little bit different, and I think a lot more interesting. And it and the climax at the very end just so satisfying. I mean, it's really a cinematic nut in my opinion. So the good, bad, and the ugly is basically there's the good, the man with no name, the bad, Lee Van Cleef, who is like the villain of the film, and the ugly, who is someone who's kind of like would be like an anti-hero in any other movie, a kind of bumbly failure, kind of like plays both sides kind of guy. And they're all after this gold, which is buried in a cemetery. And the problem is no one person can get it. Lee doesn't know. Lee only knows. Okay, so Lee doesn't know where any of it's at. Only that the money exists. Clint knows the name of the grave where the money is buried, and the ugly knows what cemetery it's buried in. So they have to kind of create like this alliance unwillingly to go and try to find it. Meanwhile, Lee Van Cleef is tracking them both down to try to figure out where this money is. And it leads to an epic showdown at the cemetery, which is just cinematic gold. If you haven't seen it, pretty sure the end part of that movie is on there, but treat yourself and just enjoy the whole movie for what it is. It's absolutely fantastic. Sergio Leone is a great spaghetti western filmmaker, and I'm glad. I'm sad. I'm sad that Ennio has passed away, because we lost someone very, very valuable who made beautiful music. But it did give me an opportunity or inspiration to actually sit down and watch all three of these movies. And man, I'm kind of regretting that I haven't seen it earlier. But Larry, what did you think of the Dollar Trilogy?
You mean one of the legendary Western movies, one of the foundational movies of the anti-Western genre? The whole spaghetti Western genre.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that solidified Clint Eastwood as one of the best actors of his generation.
Yep.
I mean, best actors from a marketing standpoint. It took many years before Clint, as a performer, caught up with Clint as a star.
Yeah. By the way, this also saved Westerns from the
garbage pile of history.
Or from the kind of what's the other guy that's really big in those movies? The one before him. Howdy, man. What the heck was that?
Oh, John Wayne?
John Wayne, yeah. John Wayne wasn't bad or anything, but it was kind of cheesy. This is much more kind of like gritty and grimy, which I really, really enjoyed over kind of John Wayne Westerns.
So, again, legendary movie. Pretty great. I guess we have to talk about another legendary movie.
Yeah, because we lost because another person we lost, we decided, hey, why not watch The Jerk, directed by Carl Reiner, starring Steve Martin.
Was actually my first time watching The Jerk all the way through.
Oh, really?
Yes. I'd watched bits and pieces of The Jerk, but I'd never actually finished the whole thing. So I realized this after the fact.
Oh, so yeah, why don't you explain it to us, since this is, I guess, fresh.
So, to go off the line that was in the Carl Reiner obituary, because it's a good line, this is basically, we're going to take Steve Martin's entire stand-up comedy routine, and we're going to make it a character. And that's what the movie is. So there's all sorts of weird little bits of Steve Martin humor that the only way they make sense is to go, so he's raised by black people in Alabama.
Oh, he was born a poor black child.
Or Mississippi, yeah, exactly. Yeah. He was born a poor black child. That's the only way this makes sense. And that's the starting point of the thing. So he's dumb. He's not a sharp man, but he does learn the difference between shit and Shinola, as his adopted father does show that to him before he leaves home. And he goes off to the big city because he heard music there, and he wants to go find his special purpose by journeying to the big city. and he eventually finds his special purpose and somebody to do it with, and he says, "I'm going to do it every day," and I wish my whole family was there just so they could watch me do my special purpose.
Yeah.
I could tell you what that is, but that would probably get us in trouble with YouTube because that would be there was some content that would make this funnier, but we had a hiccup with our technical difficulty, so that'll be for next week. So when I say next week, say, see, you would have laughed last week when I brought this up in the review. So he goes through various adventures. Jackie Mason's in the movie. Jackie Mason is great in this movie. There's a lot of other actors, and there's a joke from Spaceballs that the origin I now clearly see came from The Jerk.
Oh, which one was that one?
The Cross-Eyed.
Oh yeah.
Had its roots in The Jerk, which it was kind of amusing. Like saying, I mean, it was just funny visually, but now it's like, oh, okay, that makes even more sense now.
Because he does strike it rich with an invention.
A silly invention.
Yeah.
But
the OptiGrab.
It's a third handle that goes from the bridge of your glasses to your nose, so you can just grab it with one section.
Yeah, and not put strain on the sides of the eyeglasses, and it make sure that it doesn't fall off your nose.
Exactly. And it's again Steve Martin when he was hottest and at his peak, and he was a good boy. He sent money home to his family, who invested that money and then became wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And they bought a bigger home, which was basically the same kind of ramshackle shack they had back in Alabama,
just
but it was bigger.
It was the exact same house, but bigger.
And thus, Steve Martin's character was able to finally appreciate Negro music in his dancing and performance.
Yeah, finally got his rhythm. Yep.
So that is The Jerk.
But let me ask you, what do you think is the better film, Dumb and Dumber or The Jerk?
Oh, The Jerk. Okay. Absolutely.
I agree.
And The Jerk is a better movie entirely because of Steve Martin's delivery.
Yeah. I mean, it's not to put down Dumb and Dumber. Dumb and Dumber was one of the greatest comedy films of all time, especially about stupid people. But I just think this is just so much more. And I think
the honesty, zeal, and forthrightness of Steve Martin's character really pays everything off.
Yeah.
Whereas this is not to say Jim Carrey's performance in Dumb and Dumber was bad, but he was playing an entirely different kind of stupid person.
Right.
And again, not saying Jeff Daniels' performance was bad, but he's again playing a different kind of stupid.
He was also playing a very different kind of stupid than Jim Carrey was too. So
correct.
Yeah, so it's all kinds of different stupid. But when in terms of like, hey, comedy movie centered around stupidity, I'm going to go with The Jerk every time.
And the way other people treated the stupidity in universe was, I think, more realistic in The Jerk.
Yeah.
So what's your like touchstone with this movie, beyond it being one of the best comedy movies of all time?
Because I love Dumb and Dumber as a kid, my dad was like, "Oh, if you like that, you'd probably like The Jerk." And this was 90s, mid 90s, whatever. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I watched it, and I was like, "Oh, dude." And so it ended up becoming like a cult kind of movie, kind of going around just my neighborhood, because we would watch it all of the time. Yeah, after I was showing this around, I was like, "No, you got to watch this movie." Like, why are we watching this old movie? Oh, this is amazing, actually. I mean, the movie starts out with me, my life story. All right, well, I was born a poor black child. It's just beautiful. Start a movie better than that.
And it goes all out on the bit.
Yeah, it goes all out. 100%. And it even brings it back at the end.
Funny.
Yeah.
And that is why it's funny. So we did have a whole lot of content that we kind of had a hiccup, but you know what? I think timing-wise, it worked out better this way. So for example, we have an update on the Coof. that's going to be featured in the next show.
Nice.
About an NBC News contributor who lied about having COVID-19 to be the focus of his news coverage.
What a garbage person.
And also how the New York Times has decided that all black people are black now, even if they're from the islands or Africa. They're all black, and I think it's great that a white institution like the New York Times has made that decision for black people.
Right.
And many other interesting articles. So, Jim, I think you should take everybody out on that excellent tweet you had involving another Hollywood legend, Steven Spielberg, and how cancel culture is going to come for him soon.
Oh, if I can find it. Oh, here it is. I found it. So yeah, this is why mob justice is a stupid thing to support. And this week, 6 years ago, Facebook users condemned Steven Spielberg for killing a triceratops. Which, by the way, this wasn't just one little tweet or one little comment under a post or something. Like, no. There were lots of like animal rights groups or animal rights people who were going around saying, like, this was also about the time of the Cecil the lion killing. Someone brought this up to make a point, and there was lots of people who thought, oh my God, why would they kill this giant lizard? This is terrible. Not realizing this giant lizard was a fake lizard of a species that has been extinct for
tens of millions
for tens of millions of years before Steven Spielberg was alive, which was a long time ago.
Or more importantly, before human beings existed.
Yeah. So next time you see someone try to argue like, oh, mob justice, it ain't so bad. People, it'll kind of fix itself out. Kind of democracy works. No, this isn't. No, people are stupid. People are dumb, stupid. What was the quote from Men in Black that I used in one of my videos? A person is smart, but people are irrational, crazy, and and stupid, and you know it.
Yep.
So next time you feel like in a fervor to wanting to cancel someone because they did something stupid, just remember this: there's a pretty good chance that this Triceratops was fake. Just remember that. But Kurt Doolittle probably really did pee his pants. But
yeah.
Anyways,
Jim, I think we should talk about Kurt Doolittle and how this is a bad year for libertarianism on your other show.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna be covering that next week. Probably Monday night. We'll probably do a stream of talking about all the big libertarian cult leaders and all the crazy stuff that they've been up to this month. And
who knows?
Only 10 days in.
And who knows? Maybe Joe will have answered Michael Malice's question by then.
Yeah, and we'll get it. We'll see.
And, worms.